I suck.
It's
Anyway.
okay.
But you do.
Nobody asked you.
Yeah, no one asked the white male perspective.
Beatles wearing khaki shorts, freaking.
Roasted him! Mister, I wear this on a damn first date with a hot girl.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what he wore?
Did not go over.
Yes.
Is that what you wore?
Essentially.
A different
pretty
Beatles
much.
shirt.
Different Beatles shirt!
Welcome back to Can You Not? We are all here again. We do have a little bit of follow-up from the last episode about the conspiracy theories.
We do?
Yes. First of all, Amber's dad, at the spot where we were talking about Hello Kitty being a demon, he clarified that it was Barney, according to him, not Hello Kitty.
That's really funny. He hated Barney. I used to watch Barney when I was a kid, and he hated that show, and he still talks about how much he hated that show to me.
And then our fan and friend Angeline said, what about the people who think that Rush Limbaugh is actually Jim Morrison? And
What?
apparently this is a real actual thing. There's this conspiracy theory about where someone thinks that Jim Morrison did not actually die, and he got brainwashed into being a conservative talk show host.
What? This,
That's
even
a
the
pretty good
picture
one.
isn't, that's not even, that doesn't convince you anything. I thought the most convincing thing would be the before and after picture, and you don't,
We also had our podcast episode shared by a Tumblr page called Mr. Abel's Random Rants and Assorted Sorted Top Stories. He said, interesting topics, great conversation, but they missed the World Trade Center 7 part and are weak on 9/11.
The what?
Mm,
We missed the what?
They're saying that we're wrong about 9/11.
Oh, okay. This is why it's
there's
America.
so many theories on 9/11. I don't think we would have had enough time to cover it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't want to talk about I kind of try to
Everyone
avoid
talks
about
the really fancy things. And I mean, see, the thing though is that this person says I'm wrong about 9/11, but did I even say any opinions about 9/11?
I think we mentioned 9/11 briefly. We were saying we were grouping that in with people who believe in conspiracy theories and stuff like that.
Well, it is a conspiracy theory because there's no proof. But ooh, I'm gonna get some. Ooh, anyway.
So it's at AmbaJ on Twitter. Yeah.
At least I remembered to hashtag never forget for 7-Eleven because you don't want to forget
7-Eleven.
that. Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's important. As Trump reminded us.
Our topic, climate change, I was trying to find something very particular that it's easy to overlook because we live in such a industrialized world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we think about it in such a, we're the ones causing the issue. Companies and politicians are looking over this for a reason to make money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, what about Indigenous people? How are they affected by this? And are they the ones that actually tell us things before we can even locate it with science? And it happens to be the case. So countries like Canada, for example, are actually leaning on the Indigenous. They are leaning on the Quechua First Nations. They are located near Ottawa in Ontario Providence, along the Albany River, and they have been explaining for seasons and years that the river has been flowing higher and higher at a level that could be exponential in a sense. And now the Canadian government has been putting an effort to spend money to relocate the First Nation away from the river, but now the Canadian government are looking to First Nations to actually work in association with them to find out, okay, so your stories are actually very scientific and we need to take them seriously. Your voice really matters in these situations.
You mean like the first-hand accounts of the effects?
Yeah, the first-hand accounts of the events and also what it was before, because some of their stories to us seem folklore, but it also has some scientific relevance to precursors.
Sure.
And it also goes, I found multiple different people and how they've been impacted by this. Tanzania's Maasai, it's a very, very popular indigenous community and peoples. And they kind of lived in a migrant style of moving around from land to land to herd and hunt cattle. And now they can't do that. They have to now stay in plots of land and are forced to be located in areas where now they're economically disadvantaged. Because in Africa right now, heat is rising higher than any other continent because of climate change. And now the soil is not rich. So it's hard to grow, it's hard to share a crop, it's hard to find these cattle. And then also I wanted to kind of give biodiversity. Fiji is a Pacific island, and currently Fiji is being swallowed up by water. And the island might not cease to exist. And they're accepting the fact that now the climate is changing, fish patterns are now changing, and they have to figure out how can they change. And they're kind of left in a situation where they just dealt with a cyclone not too long ago, and they're trying to rebuild, but they can't rebuild because the climate keeps changing to the point where their island might not even exist.
Crazy.
And it was such a heartwarming intro to this because they were discussing our ancestors for tens of thousands of years talk about this island and where people are buried and our customs and cultures and traditions. But it will cease to exist because of how small our island is and how our voice doesn't matter. And I'm thinking to myself, what would it take for the indigenous voice to be heard in the climate change conversation?
I don't know. It reminds me a little bit of, like, you know, in terms of getting this information from an unlikely source, like kind of how we look at nature to try to get some information and stuff like that. Stuff that we can't figure out how to do on our own. You know, like a lot of ideas about solar energy and stuff come from looking at how plants absorb energy. And so it's interesting that there's all this information there that might be useful. It's just all a matter of looking in perhaps an unlikely source. And I think that's so cool that, like you were saying, that they have these records and stuff and even just these oral histories and stuff that are so useful. I don't know, like, did you see anything about, like, them doing this in the United States at all, too?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I imagine not.
Well, you have to remember, indigenous existence is 1% of the population.
Right.
And an issue that's going on, and I was reading this in Climate Change News, is indigenous way of life is disappearing. So it's harder to have these instances where they live so in tune with nature because now they're living in a industrial world. So yes, they have these traditions and stuff like that, but they're not living as immersive with their environment as their ancestors were, because now they are forced into these reservations and these areas that they wouldn't live in because they lived in such a migrant style or whatever the case may be. So it's I don't know how it would help because they're now holding on to existence,
Right.
like actual existence. So nature is not the first thing to think about. It's more like, can you not decimate my people?
Yeah, because people were killed and raided out of their territories in Canada too, but because Canada is so effing big, like, there was a lot more room for people to at least turn to in the long run.
I would watch how you say that because in Canada right now they're having such an issue between First Nations and the rest of the country. They just didn't find a way to decimate Indigenous people like we did.
As effectively.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's what I
'Cause
meant.
we-
I didn't mean that as a compliment to Canada. Like, oh, look, they only killed 25% of the
I'm
people.
just saying
like,
you should
know.
preface.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of circling back as soon as you said, like, looking to people who are in tune with nature. And I don't know if this is as true now, but I know when, settlers first came over, they asked natives, how did you know to tap trees for maple syrup? And the indigenous people said, well, we watch the squirrels. And the white people were like, that's really dumb. You guys are dumb. This is stupid. But that squirrels actually do that. Like and nobody believed them until we got it on footage. So it was just this thing where these people were thinking that they were superior. It's another thing. Indigenous people told settlers, malaria comes from mosquitoes. Malaria comes from mosquitoes. And the settlers were like, you're just being superstitious. Like, are you? It's this thing where people think that they're smarter than the people who actually live it.
Yeah.
But I don't. It's really sad, but we barely, like, nobody has a voice, it feels like, in this country, like,
and even around the world. And I worry that once again we're going to overlook the indigenous experience to the point where they're going to be like, listen, it's too late, my people will disappear because of societal change, and I guarantee the industrial complex of your society will cease to exist.
Just hold on just a second, though, because the indigenous people play an important part in American history.
I'm not talking purely.
No, hold on, though. When the Pilgrims came over, they taught them how to plant corn because they were just so friendly with each other. They loved each other. They had a Thanksgiving together. It was so friendly and cheerful.
But I don't think we really answered the question, though, that I pivoted.
Yeah.
It's a hard one to answer is the thing. It's
especially with such a small population that's been marginalized literally from the very beginning.
So interestingly enough, I tried to find some kind of answer, right? So Amelia Telford, she's Australian. She is of Bundjalung ancestry, and that's indigenous in Australia. And she found together the NSW, North Coast, Alternative Energy and Youth Climate Network, which is fantastic. So she's establishing things to get it going in the conversation.
That's really cool.
Which is amazing. And the fact that it's a woman, that's even better. It's big. Like badass, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, please kill it. No, please preserve it, I should be saying. Yeah, so in with this, she's talking like, we have formed it, this collective, we are raising money to put solar hot water tanks in homes of lower socioeconomic and Aboriginal housing. So like, they're thinking, since you guys aren't listening to us, we are going to do our own stuff.
Just take it into our own hands.
And take it into our own hands, which is just tremendous. But wow. I guess I want to wrap this up by saying, I wonder when is it right to not listen? And when is it right to I don't know, I guess marginalize people to such a degree that like they could be giving you the cure to cancer and it still will never be good enough. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think that's our own tragic flaw, and the indigenous voice matters, man.
Absolutely. That was a really awesome topic.
Yeah, I don't know. That's different.
See, I told you.
Yeah.
That was a great one. I can go next.
Oh no, I'm closing now.
Wow.
Pressure.
This is your alley.
Come on, every
this
time
is up
you
your
close,
alley.
you
This is science.
But like picking one topic I can rant about it, but picking one topic is hard.
I was thinking about the small ways we don't think about climate change affecting things. And I found a website that kind of highlighted some of these smaller things that you don't really think about. So one of them, which doesn't affect 2/3 of this podcast, is pork. Because they were talking about how corn is threatened in climate-related droughts and flooding, and also by the corn earworm. So corn is one of the primary feed used for pigs. So pigs are already suffering because of climate change, like that are being raised for livestock.
I think they're suffering for a lot of reasons.
Oh yeah.
If they're being raised for livestock.
But point taken. Genes was another one, because water shortages and droughts have an impact on cotton production, causing price fluctuations and even a shortage in denims. According to a recent New York Times report, a pair of jeans uses 919 gallons of water during its life cycle, which is enough to fill 15 spa-sized bathtubs.
That's a lot.
I don't know what a spa-sized bathtub is.
They're very, very
because I've never experienced one.
They're very big.
And it says that includes the water that goes into irrigating the cotton crops, stitching the jeans together, and washing them scores of times at home. So with all the water shortages because of climate change, now jeans are being affected because of that. Another one is cookies, because a lot of the things that go into making cookies, like peanut butter, are based
Almonds.
off of, particular types of crops in particular type of areas where they are not doing so well because of climate change. California wine is another one because they're going through their drought. They talk about oysters, which I don't think I've ever had an oyster. Chocolate. The anticipated 1 degree rise in world temperature by 2030 will devastate Western Africa's small cocoa farms, according to Colombian researchers. If the world temperature increases 2 degrees by 2050, it will be virtually impossible to grow cocoa plants at the elevations where current farms are located. So you're going to see all these people who are like, it's only 1 degree, it's not a big deal.
It's a huge, monumental shift.
But worldwide, it can be
devastating.
Absolutely devastating. Coffee is another one, because very similar situation to what
it uses
cocoa beans have to
water.
do. Yeah. And this is an interesting one too. Turbulence. It says that the average strength of turbulence will increase by 10 to 40% by 2050.
What does that mean? Turbulence.
On airlines and stuff.
Okay.
It says the main takeaway messages for flyers is to expect less comfortable flights in the coming decades, with the seatbelt sign switched on perhaps twice as often, which also makes for less safe rides too. So that's all the things that the article covered. But what do you think of this?
Almonds is another big one, because
Yes.
almonds are grown in California and there's a drought and it takes tons of water to grow almonds.
Yes.
But I feel like everything's gonna be affected. Like anything that uses water, which is pretty much every single thing ever that we are concerned about, because.
Right.
Honestly, there's so many processes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that this could affect, because anything that needs water naturally, even the oceans, if it's hotter, more water is going to evaporate, so the ocean water is going to be more acidic.
Right.
It's just everything. There's so much stuff that's affected by this. So
And in the case of Fiji, as Jesse mentioned, it might tend to gather in other places where it normally wouldn't have before. And
well, I think that's just because ocean levels are rising.
right.
Yeah.
Because the
Melting
glaciers are
ice caps
melting.
and stuff
yeah.
like that.
Soon Florida's going to be gone, but
That's
whatever.
not, is that really
Louisiana's
that much of a
disappearing.
loss, though? I mean, seriously.
What about Disney World?
Just
I
gotta-
have family there.
And they
Speak
even
for
say
yourself.
they think that in California that it might be gone within the next 50 years because of the way the fault lines and the
You mean California's going to be gone in the next 50 years?
yeah.
Oh, that
Possibly,
sucks.
at least parts of it, because of the way the tectonic plates are. There could be.
You're going to also see a mass migration of people from Southern California, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico, because they don't have reserve water anymore.
Yeah.
So a lot of legislation that you'll see in the future is, can we steal water from Lake Erie and all the other Great Lakes? So you're going to see a mass migration of people coming to the Midwest.
They're going to be so disappointed when they see Lake Erie.
Hey, at least it's better than it was in the 70s.
But still,
Yeah, I don't know. When we're talking about these issues and how water is an essential aspect of their existence and their process, I wonder if this will push people to think differently about their dietary, regimen, and also what they can do to make things at least alleviate their carbon footprint.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I don't think there's enough push by federal government to make those efforts happen. I know a lot of local, city, municipal legislation that goes in effect where it's we will not use plastic bags and we'll not do this and that, but it doesn't make an impact because it's not federal.
Yeah. I think what I would really like to see is more push and legislation on a macro level with that kind of stuff too. Because it's wasteful to spend an extra 20 minutes brushing my toothbrush and whatever. But at the same time, we were just reading about the genes and stuff like that, or with all these crops, that's absolutely a massive problem, how much water we have to use for that kind of stuff. And I wonder if there's a way to work on that, because I feel like that's probably where the majority of the issue is when it comes to being wasteful with products.
Well,
and
isn't
stuff
that
like
one of the huge problems? Is everybody at the top yells at everybody at the bottom, telling them they're not using the right light bulbs and they should need to turn off the tap when they're washing their dishes. But that's
Right.
not where the problem is.
Right.
Like the poor people aren't the problem.
It's the production.
I mean,
things.
we should still be doing those things, but at the same time,
Right,
like, it's not where the vast majority of the issue
Right.
is, right?
Although, to be fair, I do think something that I've been thinking more about is, like, when you buy food, it comes in plastic containers, and that plastic costs money to produce, and it costs money to cart away in the garbage and that kind of
harmful,
thing. And
yeah.
plastic is awful. So what I've actually started doing, or I'm trying to do, is, I mean, you can't completely stop buying things in plastic packaging,
Right.
but instead of buying mayonnaise, I'm going to make my own mayonnaise when I run out. Like, instead of buying more ketchup, I'm going to figure out how to make my own ketchup, because buying the raw ingredients uses less packaging than buying the plastic thing. So, I mean, that's just another thing that I think about. But I think about this a lot. I don't know. I try and be really... Because energy is used hauling waste away, so the less waste you get rid of, the fewer times, like, the less that the garbage truck will... Like, especially if you have a dumpster. Like, the less the garbage truck will have to come collect from the dumpster and that kind of thing. There are lots of little things that people can do, like, normal people. But, like, with these big things, I think you're right. We need action from people making rules.
And I've been thinking about this for the last month, actually. Like, how is my dietary pattern or regimen creating more conflicts? And I've moved away from eating pig, any kind of pork. I'm really lowering eating chicken. I was once a vegetarian. I might move back to that. I'm slowly doing that. Because I know the stress that raising these animals at such a rate, and the soil and like the leftover waste that comes from it, it's very destructive. The other thing too is I used to really like almond milk, but then I realized how much water it extracts. So I get in this conflict of, do I buy it, do I not buy it?
Tough,
I've been trying to stick more to water, and then I have my personal faults with pop. But I'm also noticing, at least, like, I work at a corporate retail chain kind of franchise thing going on, and it's nationwide, and I would say
It's not Nationwide, the company.
no.
It's
Yeah, I can't give the name out, but I would say maybe 1/12 of our product is now purely glass. And they're housing a lot more things in glass, and they're changing the packaging, which is awesome. So I've been trying to buy stuff that is of glass.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the other... Are you...
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good.
yeah, I didn't want to cut you off. Another thing, too, just about dietary changes, is, like, people say dietary changes and they immediately think, well, I'm not going to stop eating meat. But there are a lot of things, like the almonds. Like, almonds are, I mean, I'm super guilty of that, but almonds use up a lot of water, if you can be, being conscious of that. And also there are other things that, like, palm oil. Anything with palm oil in it is basically evil, because they raise... rainforests for these palm plantations, and it's really, really, really terrible. So avoiding palm oil is good. And that's actually something, as a person who doesn't eat meat or dairy most of the time, like, if you go into, like, and try and get into the fake stuff, like the fake cheeses and the fake what have you, palm oil is a huge thing with all that stuff.
Sometimes it feels damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because, like, I switched to almond milk because I wanted to cut out more milk. But, like, if almond milk now is also wasted, what about
Water.
soy milk? Is soy milk
Just
pretty
water.
Well, soy milk has lots of estrogen in it,
I was gonna
especially if
say.
it's a
I don't
GMO.
like
Well, it causes breast cancer in men too. So, I mean, it's fine if you don't mind it,
I want my
but
cereal.
rice milk
Oh.
I think is a good. I'm just saying, rice milk is an alternative that I haven't found any bad things yet, but it's just slightly more expensive than almond milk is.
I guess to wrap it up, the information is out there.
You just have to find it
You have to find it, and
act on it.
Not all of us, are perfect in any means,
Right.
but
We have to remember that we have limitations. As long as I think we do our best and we try to be conscious.
and like the
be
easiest
aware,
little
right?
things is like, hey, like, don't buy new clothes. Like,
Yeah,
don't
buy
new
used
jeans.
clothes.
Use like for the most part, I would say 80% of my wardrobe is repurposed in some way from thrift stores.
99% of my clothes are hand-downs.
Yeah, I was about to say, little things like that are also a big help. So you guys can do that
99%
too.
of my wardrobe has been my wardrobe since junior high.
And then she'll buy one cute
Way
thing,
to
and it's
recycle,
like, oh my
Amber.
gosh, Amber, look at you.
Hey, this tank top, see the elastic going out? Like,
But see, you could have fooled me though, because it's cute.
oh, thanks. Thanks, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Your
Aw.
sleepy Pokemon Go ass.
And on that happy note, I will talk about our brand new sponsor, 1Password. 1Password remembers all of your passwords for you. I have like a million different passwords, and I also have a bunch of passwords that are identical, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. But with 1Password, you can store all of your passwords, PIN codes, documents, credit cards, alarm codes, bank account info, social security numbers, and more. It keeps your digital life secure and always available, safe behind the 1Password only you know. You can unlock 1Password on your mobile device with your fingerprint or a PIN code, and you can use tools with it like Security Audit to find duplicate and weak passwords and improve them with the Strong Password Generator. It also has a feature called the Watchtower, which receives around-the-clock security alerts for the services and sites that you use. The apps work on Mac, Windows, iOS, and Android, and they have really helpful one-on-one support where you can get friendly, free support from Agile Bits, that's the name of the company that produces it, whenever you need it. So, they are very, very proud of their support, and they definitely want you to take advantage of it if you have any issues with it. So definitely give 1Password a try if you want to secure your internet life. 1Password, when it's too important to go anywhere else.
Kind of, I guess, relating to what we were just talking about with the things that people can do might not be as effective as the things that big companies can do. So an opinion that I've always had, or maybe not always, but opinion that I've long held is that while, like, having people buy energy efficient light bulbs and turning off the faucet and taking the bus instead of driving, like, that stuff's okay, but I think the real solution is instead of wagging your finger at everyday people, it's in making it so that way using electricity isn't the bad guy anymore. It's generating the electricity using means that are renewable, instead of saying, well, use less of this terrible thing so that way there's slightly less, because that makes sense to me. So what I was looking into were renewable energy thingies, so just alternative means of energy production, which there are a whole lot of them. But one thing that caught my eye was that they are just now doing research on the environmental impact of solar parks. And one of the things that they found is that solar parks can cool the surrounding area of up to 5.2 degrees Celsius, which is 9.4 degrees Fahrenheit during the summer, and less than that in the winter. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but they are now starting, or a good thing. It didn't really say, it's just kind of showing that it does change what the place where it's at. So I was looking at the impacts and just different other ways. Oh man, I just X'd out of a tab. I didn't mean to do that. That's gone forever. Of other renewable sources. And there are a lot of things, and I feel like there are also a lot of myths, and a lot of interesting ideas about how to counter climate change, I guess, or at least slow it down. So, like, my favorite one is that people get mad my favorite myth is that people get mad because wind turbines kill birds. Which is stupid, because more cats kill birds, more buildings kill birds, more literally anything else that kills birds kills birds.
How often do you see, like, a bird corpse lying around? It's pretty rare, because, like, everything attacks birds.
Right, like, it's ridiculous. And there are other things, like, the solar panels, like, if things get too hot, it can reflect up and it heats stuff too much and it kills stuff. And that reflecting heat is why it's cooler on the ground. Whoa. But there are other things, too. Like, nuclear power in some places is considered renewable somehow. But I was just wondering if you guys, like, had opinions about different renewable sources, because I feel like when you get into a conversation, people are always like, I want solar, or I want wind, or I want, like, this thing that
Water.
they think will fix it, you know.
I don't think any sovereign nation should ever rely upon the algae renewable energy source.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah,
Biomass?
Yeah, I think so. Where they rely upon algae blooms, and they try to harness the energy, and it is very, very, very extremely hard, and you put more energy than what you get out of it. A lot of bigwigs in the political sphere try to pivot to this kind of thing, and it's really not that efficient with extracting energy. I learned about it in an ecology course, and I read into it, and it's great in concept to think, okay, like for instance, look at Lake Erie. We are suffering from algae blooms from the Western Basin, right? Like
True.
Toledo and the Maumee River has so much algae growing out of it that it's now spreading to the Central Basin and the Eastern Basin of Lake Erie. And the issue at hand is, hey, why don't we take this algae and harness it for energy? And it's like, it takes more energy to extract it than what you're getting back from it.
Well, I feel like that's the case with a lot of things, but
Especially algae, I feel it's combustible as well in such a way when you're trying to do it. I think you have to heat it too, and it's just very...
Yeah, I want to look into that. I don't think I'm going to be able to teach myself it in this 10 minutes, like, on Google right now. But that's really interesting.
So, yeah, that's something that I don't know why politicians are trying to make it seem like it's an easier source.
Because it's literal green energy, and it's pretty to look at, and it's easy to... Like, look, we have too much. Let's use it. It's too picaresque. Like, it's too easy. What about you, Joe?
Well, Jesse, if I may suggest a contribution to our own apartments, I want to get one of those spinny bikes where it charges batteries and
That's
stuff.
That's not what I meant. I'm talking about big stuff, Joe. Like,
I mean, we could charge so many batteries.
So many
that way.
I would love to work for a company that had solar panel farms.
Solar panels
That'd
are
be
cool.
cool.
Solar panels are really, really good in tandem with wind turbines because at night it gets colder, so the wind is blowing more, and during the day there's less wind, but there's more sun.
Don't they have solar things at James's workplace?
I don't know.
I thought
ask
they did.
him. I have no idea.
James is Amber's roommate and also our friend, and he works for a pretty big tech company.
Pretty nice.
Yeah,
It's very Google-esque.
I don't know.
You can't say that word.
Anyway.
They're gonna send some people after me.
Yes.
The Google agents will come knocking on the door. Hey, I work for Google, kind of technically, because I make YouTube videos. That counts.
So, Joe, you didn't answer the question really.
What about like water mills and stuff like
Hydropower?
that? Yeah.
Dams and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So, a thing, without looking it up right now, a thing that I'm aware of with hydropower is you either need a original water source, which means going in and disrupting a lot of stuff because you have to build a mill there, right? Or my favorite one is what they do is they manufacture like a hill, or they go to a hill that isn't super like, or a hill that doesn't have a river on it, and they put water there, and what they do is at night when electricity's cheap, they pump the water back up the hill, and then during the day when electricity is more expensive to buy, they run the water back down the hill to generate electricity. It's fantastic.
Why don't they just get a bunch of salmon? They'll all go upstream and create a current, thus generating electricity.
I don't think... No.
It's
Did
brilliant.
you learn that science in Catholic school?
Oh, holy crap. That was nuts. That was hard. I think part of the reason why I'm interested in this, I mean, aside from the fact that I have kind of a degree in this, is that one of the more optimistic projections that I've seen is that if we cut our CO2 emissions in half within the next 50 years, we might save the planet. Like, we might maybe be good if we can do this.
And I think there is a possibility of doing it. It's just a fact. Can we beat these major oil companies?
Especially, one of my least favorite things is when people get mad because we want to subsidize wind energy and renewable energy and just and solar and just all these things as if the non-renewables aren't already subsidized. Like, they get really mad, or they start talking about efficiency, and I think coal or oil or something is something like 30% efficient, and they're mad because the wind turbines are only like 30% efficient. It's like, well, that's like literally what you're doing right now.
It's a transition.
And there's going to be, and it would be a larger upfront cost. But the cool thing is that the price is coming down. That's why it's getting easier to implement. It's economics.
And I feel like with this kind of science and studies into it, I feel like it keeps growing, and the technology for it, there's a need for advancements, right? So I feel like within that, the industry, there should be more jobs and more a need of growing it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like oil and extraction, we've hit here. And now we've hit fracking, and we've hit here. But I feel like with renewable energy, you can keep going up and up and up in the advancements of it.
And Go ahead.
I was just going to say, humanity's been powerful enough to create this mess in the first place, so we should be strong enough to take it down.
Yeah, well, the problem is just that, there are people with money in this. And, you can't go to a coal mining town and preach green energy because that's where everybody works.
Yeah.
Speaking of coal, did you know that coal is clean energy?
No, it's not.
Well, not to get too political, but we have the Republican National Convention coming to town next week. And they have put out some of their platform policy that they're mentioning. And after a unanimous vote on Monday, the RNC's draft platform officially declared that coal is an abundant, clean, affordable, reliable domestic energy resource.
Who declared this?
The RNC.
I don't care what the RNC declares. That's the thing. Why are politicians telling me what the scientists are supposed to be telling me?
I was about to say, and scientists, regardless of their political affiliation, are telling us, WTF, mate, look at the stats. Look at the numbers.
This is ridiculous.
They say it's because of the technology we have now.
What?
Nonsense. I call nonsense on this. It's stupid. That doesn't make sense.
So I'm kind of excited for what is next.
I'm glad that, because as we get better at it, because, with anything you have to work at it and you have to innovate with it, and as it gets bigger, more people get their hands on it and they're able to innovate it even more. So I think solar is definitely going to come down a lot. Wind turbines are improving a bunch.
Oh, yeah.
But just really fast before we go, just speaking of politicians saying things, there was a Arizona State Committee on water and energy, and they decided that nuclear power is renewable. And I just thought it was funny because I literally Googled nuclear energy pros and cons, and there are a bunch of advantages, low cost, low pollution, whatever, high energy density, and then the disadvantages. There are only 2 of them, and one of them was accidents happen. And the other one was radioactive waste.
Oh, that's not a big deal.
So, I would like for this committee to go to Japan.
I just think
how they feel about
But
it.
literally, look at this. It's so funny because it just says accidents happen. And that's the con. And
They
radioactive
make it sound
waste.
like an adult explaining to a 5-year-old why they wet their pants.
I also think it's funny that they say low pollution, because at the end of low pollution it says, however, nuclear waste is potentially harmful for both humans and the environment. It's what is nuclear waste if it's not pollution? Are you kidding
But
me?
it's not that bad. But
It's
alright.
really fine, Japan's broken,
You get
but
to be
it's fine.
a mutated superhero or something. That's
know.
how all the superheroes are born.
What I'm getting from this conversation is 2 things. You shouldn't politicize marginalized people, and you shouldn't politicize scientific fact.
Yeah, scientists, you just need to listen to the experts, and politicians are not, I don't think politicians are experts on anything, let alone science that they're making up, so that way the things backing them make money.
No, I mean, they're experts on kissing babies.
Okay, let's just call it what it is. They're experts at rhetoric.
They're not even good at that. Look at Trump. Oh
public
my
speaking.
No,
god.
he is good at public speaking. He's figured it out. He's cracked the code.
Yeah, he has.
Regardless, I refuse to say his name on our episodes, and once again, I've broken my rule.
No.
But anyways, I feel like the common thread of everything we've talked about today is there's scientific fact, there's options we can choose, and there's peoples that are telling us this. Let's listen to the qualified people.
Read the warnings.
And actually put forth the effort. Come on now, world. Let's do it.
As soon as it makes the right people
Let
money.
Shia LaBeouf do it.
Oh no.
Anyways.
Oh, man. What else did we learn today? That was a pretty good overarching
I
message.
don't know, it's your turn, Joe.
Oh, man. Okay, so I learned that there's lots of little ways and little effects of climate change, but gotta be looking at the big ways too, people.
I learned that there are lots of big ways that climate change is affecting us, and we really need to get our shit together in the next 50 years, or we're screwed. That, or we need to find somewhere else to colonize. Pick one, stick with it. We need to get going.
Do it!
Joe.
Just do it!
Joe.
Thank you, Shia. If you want to just subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can do that in the link below now that we've been putting episodes on there. You can also subscribe to our SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/CYN podcast. And you can follow us on iTunes. We're into the podcast section. Can you not? With question mark at the end. And give us a rating. We would love to read your rating on air. And if you have any sort of ideas for themes, or if you want to leave a comment, or just talk a little bit about what we talked about, or anything at all, you can email canyouNotPodcast@gmail.com.
Shout out to my dad. He's doing the Alzheimer's ride this weekend. He's riding his bike for like 1,000,000 years, and all the proceeds that he raised are going towards Alzheimer's research.
Yes, there'll be a link for that in the show notes as well.
You can't donate anymore, but you can go look if you want.
Maybe find foundations that you can give your money to.
Oh, you can
They're
still give the
incredible.
money to the Alzheimer's
Yeah.
research. It just
Oh,
won't
hold
go to
on a
my
minute.
dad anymore.
Oh, it's over? The
He's
campaign?
doing the ride.
He's
Oh,
actually
he's
doing
actually-
it.
Joe, I said
Oh,
shout
man.
out because he's riding his bike this weekend.
Oh man! Wow, I'm so used to hearing you plug it that I
You
just
didn't even
completely
listen to
like.
me. You
just-
didn't even listen.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Take it away, Shia.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it!
That's a message to OG Bobby Johnson. And to people who don't agree, can you not?
Can Shia LaBeouf not?
Sacagawea was a real person. Pocahontas was a real person. And yet their voices weren't heard. So, F you.
Bye.
That's me.
It is. It's a pufferfish. It's not a blow. Well, I guess it's the same thing. The background of my Bing right now. It's
Yeah,
Jesse.
it's definitely me.
If only it were a gecko.
Amber's part of the 0.5% of the population that uses Bing.
Listen, they give me free money, okay, so I don't care.
I'm signing up for one, so I can't even talk.
I have enough money for a $5 Starbucks gift card right now.
Ooh.